Hello everybody and welcome back to my final installment in my Christmas review series. Today I'm going to talk about my all-time favorite Christmas movie, Die Hard.
Are you kidding me?
Stop. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Well, let me explain. Pretty much all of you know the story of this film, but I might as well just go over it for the few of you out there that don't. John McClane is an off-duty cop from New York. He's come down to Los Angeles for Christmas to visit his wife. Unfortunately, the building they're in is taken over by terrorists led by Hans Gruber. But John McClane escapes, and it's up to him to battle the terrorists and save the day. So why is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Well, besides the fact that it's set at Christmas and it has a lot of Christmas-related things in it, such as characters constantly singing Christmas songs, John whistles Jingle Bells when he first arrives at the building, and Hans Gruber hums Ode to Joy occasionally during the film. The story of the film does somewhat relate to Christmas. How? Well, let me explain. John McClane is down here because it's Christmas time. John McClane is down here to visit his wife for Christmas. That's the reason he's here. So if you took Christmas out of this movie, then he would have no reason to go down there. Think of other Christmas stories, for example. Say, A Christmas Carol, arguably the most famous Christmas story of all time. What is that story really about? It's about a grouchy old man who gets taken back in time and to the present and to the future and is redeemed. It barely has anything to do with Christmas at all. Also, there are plenty of other films that don't really have all that much to do with Christmas that people nonetheless consider to be Christmas films. A good example would be Home Alone. Most people consider that to be a Christmas film, and it doesn't really have all that much to do with Christmas except for the fact that it's set at Christmas. So why can't Die Hard be? But besides that, Die Hard is also one of the greatest action films ever made. It came out in the 80s, which was a decade that gave us many great action films. But one of the things that made this one easily the best out of them all was the protagonist, John McClane. Never before had a main character in an action film been this human. His character is extremely vulnerable throughout the whole film. He constantly gets his ass handed to him, but still manages to pull through. And he doesn't have that much confidence. He constantly talks to himself, and it's clear that he's very scared throughout the whole film. He's just a normal guy who's in the wrong situation. We also have the late Alan Rickman playing the terrorist leader Hans Gruber. Alan Rickman does a great job with this role, delivering his lines in that slow Alan Rickman kind of way. Rest in peace, Alan Rickman. You did a great job. But what was great about his character is, while it does seem that he is a terrorist at first, as the film goes on, you quickly find out that he is in fact just a common thief after the money, but he uses the terrorist identity to hide that. Unfortunately, he's so good that I find he overshadows his henchman, Carl, who in my opinion is even more threatening. Where Hans is just a common thief and doesn't have much passion in what he does, Carl definitely has a lot of passion. John McClane kills his brother near the beginning of the film and he goes insane. One of the best scenes of the film involves him tipping a desk over in anger and saying that he wants blood. His character becomes passionate and intent on killing John McClane. He barely even cares about getting the money and is even willing to disobey his boss just to kill John. He's also a worthy match for John physically. In one of the film's best fight scenes, he beats the living hell out of John, but John fights back. And even at the end of the film, after Hans dies, he still manages to get out of the building and almost kill John. As for the rest of the terrorists, they aren't really that memorable, with the exception of Theo, the hacker. He basically just plays the nerdy comic relief type villain character, and he's rather fun. We also have John's wife, Holly. She's definitely a good character, but she doesn't really have all that much to do, unfortunately. She's mainly just a hostage throughout the film, though I like how they didn't make her the typical damsel in distress and have her scream all the time. Reginald VelJohnson plays Al Powell, a cop that John befriends via walkie-talkie. Just like John, his character is a human being. He's the only cop on the ground that actually believes John and supports him, and he, much like John, has problems of his own. The biggest one being that he shot a kid once, and he refuses to ever use his gun again, until the end when he saves John from Carl. Argyle is John's limo driver. His character is funny, and he does have a nice moment at the end where he takes out Theo, showing that even supporting characters can take part. The action scenes of this film are great. None of them have a very big scale to them, but that's kind of the idea. This is a very claustrophobic movie. The action scenes range from shootouts to fist fights to jumping off of a building while it's exploding in one of the coolest shots ever in a movie. This is also a very suspenseful film. Every single moment in this movie there's tension, constantly building up. Possibly the best example is when John is crawling around in the air ducts and Carl is right beneath him. Do I have problems with this movie? Yes, I do. So let's talk about them. First off, the opening title sequence for this movie. While I do love the first few scenes of this movie, they are somewhat ruined by the titles constantly popping up and distracting you. I always hate it when movies do that. If you're gonna do titles at the beginning of the movie, then create a title sequence, or just have scenes of characters walking or doing things that aren't too related to the plot. But when characters are talking about important information that's vital to the movie and setting up their character traits, it's rather distracting to just have titles popping up every couple of shots. Also, the police department in this movie are a bunch of idiots. I mean, there's a scene in which John McClane calls for help and they respond by saying, "This channel is reserved for emergency calls only." And while it does lead to one of my favorite lines in the movie, it does piss me off that the police department is this stupid. And the character of Dwayne Robinson is annoying as hell. He constantly keeps on shooting John McClane down and not believing anything that Al Powell tells him. And while sometimes his character can be enjoyably stupid, most of the time he's just plain annoying. Now I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to make John McClane seem alone and raise the tension more. But do they really just have to make the police department so goddamn stupid? It really does bother me. There's another character who's a news reporter and he's somewhat annoying too. And he's just unnecessary. There's a scene at the end where his character gets punched in the face, and honestly I can't help but feel that that should have been Dwayne Robinson that got that. His character was much more prominently featured in the film and I found him to be much more annoying. It would have been nice if his character actually helped John in the end and redeemed himself. That is one thing that I must give Die Hard 2 credit over this film. The stupid cop in that film, while still annoying, does eventually redeem himself. This one just stays a complete idiot throughout the entire film. Even at the end of the film, all he can talk to John McClane about is how much property damage he caused. But despite that, Die Hard is still a great film and a definite action classic. And it still is my favorite Christmas movie of all time. I'm gonna give Die Hard 9 out of 10. So I hope you enjoyed these Christmas reviews. I will see you in the new year. Merry Christmas, or Happy Christmas, or Happy Hanukkah, or whatever you celebrate. And I will see you next year.